Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Sorry I can't do any filming outside today. It is raining pretty hard. So you guys are stuck back in my office again. Alright, today I want to talk about why I recommend that drug-free lifters, and I'm going to use the word drug-free from now on because I hate the word natural. I think it is the most moronic term to possibly use for a drug-free lifter or a drug-free bodybuilder. But I want to talk about why if you're drug-free, you should probably bulk and cut slowly. Now, before anyone chimes in, I'm not saying you can't have great success doing it faster. I'm saying that it comes at a price, and generally speaking, you're going to be better off in the long run if you do these things a little slower. And what I mean by that is running at a 10% surplus to bulk and a 10% deficit to cut. If you stall on either one, change it another 10%. Now, for the bulking, it should be pretty straightforward why I recommend this. Let's say your maintenance calories are 3,000, so you go ahead and you bulk on 3,300. So that's a 300 calorie surplus. Now if you do the math on that, that is approximately 9,000 calories of surplus per month. You're going to gain around 2.5, maybe 3 pounds per month doing that. That doesn't seem like a lot, but when you realize that a novice lifter can't gain more than 2 pounds of muscle a month without drugs, you're still gaining fat on that, which is perfectly reasonable. You should expect to gain some fat on a proper bulk. And then for more advanced lifters, they're going to gain a lot more fat than muscle on that small of a surplus. But the point is that is enough of a surplus to give you all the nutrients you need for muscle growth, to give you improved performance, to stimulate that muscle growth. And while you're still going to gain some fat, you're going to gain a lot less fat in proportion to the muscle. So it's basically a nice middle ground there. It's a nice clean bulk. Now obviously you're going to stall at some point because as you gain muscle, as you gain weight and your performance increases, your total caloric burn is going to go up. So you're going to stall every now and then, no matter what. And when you stall for 2 to 3 weeks, so you go 3 weeks with no change on the scale, bump it up another 10%. Very simple. It's the best way to keep your body fat in check. Now the exception to this might be a strength athlete who needs to gain a lot of weight for whatever reason to make it up to the next weight class, and they don't want to take their time with it. That's fine, but for everybody else, it's a good rule of thumb to use. Now for the cutting, I'm not recommending this because of metabolic damage, because I don't believe in metabolic damage. And in fact, the major proponents of metabolic damage still have produced no evidence to prove it. They don't have evidence to back it. There's plenty of scientific evidence to the contrary to show that the adaptations are not that big. If you go on 1,000 calories and a high volume training routine, you will continue to lose weight all the way until you look like a skeleton. You will have no problem doing so. You will not stall and stop losing tissue weight. But the reality of it is that when you start running large caloric deficits, you lose more muscle tissue. You lose more performance. You have more issues with binging and feeling deprived. And if you're following the bulking rules I just gave, you never need to lose a lot of body fat. Now, keep in mind this applies to relatively lean individuals, people who are, for men, 15% or less body fat, for women, 25% or less body fat, people who are at a normal healthy body fat who want to get leaner. If you're obese, obviously you can cut a lot faster than this, because if you're fairly obese and reasonably new to training, you can gain muscle while losing 2 pounds a week easily. So you can run a much larger deficit and get away with that. Do whatever you have to do to get the fat off, because it's not healthy to be obese. It's actually in your best interest to do so. Just don't do a crazy crash diet to where you're going to binge. Don't cut your calories so low that you're going to feel restricted and you're going to binge. And so again, this comes down to, for relatively lean individuals who are at a healthy body fat trying to get leaner, the reason you run the small deficit is to preserve muscle tissue better, because even if you go, well, I only lost 1 pound of muscle tissue that I didn't have to lose on that cut, but you worked hard for that pound of muscle tissue. And if you're a relatively advanced lifter, a pound of muscle is a lot. That might have taken you 5 or 6 months to build, just to lose it in a cut. Now for the noob, that's only like a month's worth of work, but the more advanced lifter, that could be up to 6 months of your year was spent gaining that pound of muscle. So it becomes a very serious point if you're losing a few ounces or a few pounds of muscle on a cut. It becomes a very serious deal if you're not a novice lifter. And again, the other issue comes down to diet adherence. If you're running a big caloric deficit, you're going to be more inclined to binge. When I'm talking about these deficits and surpluses, I'm not talking about the micromanaged ones day to day. I'm talking about your averages for the week. So remember, if you're drug-free, you're probably going to be better off taking the slower approach. Keep your surpluses around 10% when bulking and your deficits around 10% when cutting. And that's going to give you all around better diet adherence. It's going to give you better body composition, and overall you're going to be happier with your results, and you're going to have to put less effort into things if you do it that way and just take your time with your bulking and your cutting. Because remember, generally speaking, if you're not on drugs, don't expect dramatic changes. It's going to take consistency over long periods of time to reach your goals. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot first.